This follows a previous council with the unanimous motion in January advancing efforts of an age-friendly city, directing staff to explore and report back as soon as possible on a plan to advance efforts to make Vancouver an age-friendly city. This motion was supported by 35 senior serving organizations, recognizing that the prior work on creating a senior strategy was interrupted 4 years ago following city-led workshops, and this work has been suspended since COVID. It's also important to note that city staff never met with the advisory committees that were listed in the motions concerning either of these motions as directed by the motions. Although I should say that SAC had a very productive meeting with Paul Motkery, the city manager, near the end of the SAC term upon the SAC executive request. If we go to the next slide, please. Well, why is this important around a seniors planner? The latest census shows that 30% of the population living in Vancouver are 55 years and older, 23% are 60 and over, and 17% are 65 and over. Single older women represent approximately 60% of seniors over age 85. And this number is expected to double within the next decade. This is particularly critical when one considers that 60% of all senior renters in Vancouver are in core housing need as defined by CMHC. If we go to the next slide. Between 2016 and 2021, the population of seniors have increased 15.5%. Population of adults over the age of 65 in BC is expected to rise 63% by the year 2041, while the projected increases for youth and working populations will only increase by 14.5% and 20% respectively. The next slide, please. Seniors are the fastest growing demographic of those that are homeless in Vancouver, BC. Let me just say that again. We are the fastest growing demographic of those that are homeless in Vancouver. BC Housing data indicates that seniors are also the fastest growing demographic on the waiting lists for housing. Yet it has been reported by city staff that the City of Vancouver, BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health have not had discussions or coordinated planning regarding seniors' housing needs. We are, however, very glad that city staff this past 3 months have initiated work on creating a seniors housing strategy and community engagement framework. And I'm meeting actually with city staff on December 1st on this matter. If we can go to the next slide. The Seniors Advisory Committee is just completing a jurisdictional scan of large urban municipalities across Canada. Vancouver, unfortunately, has fallen behind other Metro Vancouver cities and other municipalities that have created comprehensive senior strategy and have developed multi-agency, provincial and federal partnerships in both planning, operationalizing and funding. The City of Toronto, for instance, has a seniors service team, which consists of a manager of senior services, 4 full-time management consultants, 1 project coordinator, that manages over 40 municipal housing, social, economic, health services for seniors throughout the City of Toronto. It also oversees the implementation of an integrated service model in 83 seniors designated Toronto community housing buildings that support aging in place for approximately 15,000 senior tenants.
Mark, I'm sorry, we're over time, but
okay.
You do have a lot of questions, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If we can just show the last slide in terms of emerging best practices, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd be pleased to, in my first question, ask to see what's on that last slide. Is this it? No.
There you go. All right, Councillor Carr, you're up.
Okay. She just did. She just asked me to talk about the emerging best practices.
Thank you.
So is that correct?
That is correct. That's what I asked.
Okay, thank you. In the best practices that we looked at across urban centers across Canada, co-creating a senior strategy in collaboration with seniors-based organizations and other government agencies is an important first step. Establishment of clear terms of reference and timelines with community-informed performance measures on strategic objectives also makes a significant difference. Constructing strategic teams, internal, external leads across departments relevant to identified objectives, make a real difference on progress. Regular reporting with accountability to council and other government agencies makes an important contribution. But having a dedicated staff person supporting internal and external communication is critical, especially during emergencies, the climate, health, fire, etc. The interdepartment leads assigned to specific objectives really improves communication across and within departments. I think we can do a lot better. I am so excited with this council that has got expertise on it around seniors. And I'm also very excited about the seniors housing strategy. I think that the time is right for us to really make some progress on creating an age-friendly city.
Thank you. I have two questions. My first is, you talked about seniors being the largest group of homeless people in terms of increasing numbers. Where do the seniors who are homeless go? I mean, I'm assuming not on the street, but where?
Unfortunately, they go on the street.
Oh.
And they also end up in SROs, and they also end up in, we talk about public safety, but what's happening with those homeless seniors that only are homeless because of poverty, they're being moved into facilities where there is mental health addictions and other issues, and or have dementia issues. And Vancouver is one of the cities that does not have a dementia strategy, which is a growing interest across other large municipalities.
Sorry, I just don't have time for my next question, but thank you.
Councillor Clausen?
Mark, really great to see you, and thanks for serving on the Seniors Advisory Committee. I have to look at what the terms are, but I'm hoping you're going to continue with that going forward. I don't have a lot of questions at this point because I know I'm going to have a lot more later on. Later today, we're going to be putting forward something seniors related, and so I'm sure we'll have you back and some of your colleagues as well. I guess my point to make here is I'm very glad that you've brought forward this at this time in the budget because we are and I take your point how important that interdepartmental work needs to happen. I think that if we start getting into discussions around headcount, it gets a little bit more challenging, but if we can actually get everything from communications to social services to engineering and all the different departments talking to each other, clearly I cite continuously a report that was published just prior to the pandemic by RBC Thought Leadership that in Canada put climate change and our aging demographic as the two existential crises our country are facing. And so as a result, we need to be resolved to really work on both those things. And we talk a lot about climate change. We don't talk a lot about older adults. And there's reasons for that. I think ageism is partly as a result of that. But I think we can do some great work together, and I'm looking forward to working with you and your group in the days ahead.
Mayor, I have a point of procedure, if I could.
Sure.
Maybe a gentle reminder, as I know the new council is settling in, that in the procedure bylaw for the questions period, we stick to questions and versus comments, and we have a separate
question.
opportunity for that.
Thanks.
And I'm not singling that at Councillor Clausen. I've just noticed that. I've just noticed that in general, and I just thought that might be helpful for the
Yes,
meetings.
thank you.
Point me out as well.
One of the areas that that is of most concern is around social disconnectedness and social isolation. Do you have any sort of quick thoughts on what are the things that we can do to try and address that challenge?
I think by looking at your building and zoning and ensuring that all buildings have facilities, library facility, a meeting room facility, having opportunities where people can actually, so you're building for social connectedness. A number of housing co-ops do this very, very well, but it could be replicated across other facilities. And I think it's really important. And I think the library services, as discussed, is a fabulous example as well for facilitating social connectedness. But it is a huge problem and was even, and is so much worse now with COVID. It's been a real mental health issue, I think,
100%.
for seniors.
Sorry, we're
I'm at time.
Yeah.
I look forward to our
Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thanks, Mark, for being here. Only because you raised the issue of dementia and the growing challenges that we face as a city when supporting our residents that are dealing with that medical issue. Can you just speak high level to where you were going with that, bringing that into this conversation, how it relates to the budget, the seniors planner, and the opportunities within our city?
I think it really comes back to there are so many fabulous opportunities that we've learned from the jurisdictional scan of recognizing that the city on its own cannot meet this need for seniors. But there is provincial funding, there is federal funding, there is interest in seniors. There just has to be a senior strategy to help realize that. There is some fabulous examples of dementia villages going on within certain cities. But it takes a coordination with the province, with the Ministry of Health. The problems that we are facing is the segmentation and tunneling of all the different groups that impact seniors. But we've had examples in the past with the city where there were memorandums of understanding. I think in the first time that with the Healthy City Initiative, there were memorandums of working together with Vancouver Coastal Health and the Ministry of Health. And I think the same could be done around seniors.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. Can you speak specifically to, I imagine many folks don't actually know what's happening with the community around advocacy and dementia in the city. Can you just touch on those organizations?
Well, I think that the Alzheimer's Society, and we actually have had 2 gerontologists on the Seniors Advisory Committee in this past term, the past 2 years, that are really providing some leadership around dementia, but it is really underdeveloped. And there's innovation that's occurring, not just here in Canada, within certain municipalities, but internationally. There's been some tremendous work done. But there is a need for continued advocacy, but it's going to take provincial and federal leadership to really make it happen.
Okay, and by way of a senior strategy is how.
By the way of
we're
a senior
to make that
strategy and
happen.
bringing those in as partners in the planning phase. That's where the other municipalities have been successful. Engaging those partners right at the beginning of planning, operationalizing, and then funding and accountability. If you include them in the accountability table, and there's several municipalities that have done this, you'll leverage more funds and you'll actually make tremendous progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the docket, Nathan Davidowitz. Sorry, mispronounced your name, buddy. I know you as Nathan, so.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing me. Well, here we are, a new city council, 5 new members, but the same staff. Many of the talented staff left during the last 2 years to adjacent cities. The top 2 engineers left to Metro Vancouver Regional District. So that's what you were asking about, retention of staff, and that's, here we are. Why can't we not schedule delegations in the same way that it's done in other cities? You know, why is it's very simple. Why doesn't the staff implement it? It's very, very simple. You know, maybe we should bring former Mayor Sam Sullivan and his chief of staff, Danielle Fontaine, who is now a city councilor in US. And maybe they'll teach the staff here how to do things properly, how things, when the city was run properly when Sam Sullivan was a mayor. And,
Sorry.
you know,
Yeah, point, yeah.
I've spoken before in previous years about the city budget,
Yep.
and the city staff are refusing to
Sorry,
make any
Nathan,
changes.
Nathan, sorry, if we can refrain from, having sort of attacking comments on former people that have worked at City Hall or the team members here in general, that's what we'd want here.
I'm not attacking the former mayor. I'm just, I wish he was here.
Yeah, so anyways,
Okay.
what we promote here is, constructive conversations. And that's where we want to go with this.
Yeah, thank you. You know, as I said, I've spoken before about the city budget, and there's been no changes whatsoever. The staff just followed the previous bad ways of running our city. Most changes were implemented by the original Vision Council, and that's why Vancouver is behind. Infrastructure improvement is what residents and businesses need. Sidewalks, over 20% of our streets have no sidewalk on one side or on both sides. We only spend about $2 million per year on new sidewalks. In Burnaby, they spend $10 million per year to construct 30 kilometers of new sidewalks, and the residential property owners do not pay anything for those sidewalks. In Vancouver, the property owner pays, depending on the location, up to 100% of new sidewalks. So that's a simple thing that you could change right away if you want our city to have sidewalks everywhere. Street lighting, that's another major infrastructure, and especially bad lighting in the West End and downtown. These are high density of over 10,000 people per square kilometer, and they need better lighting. The West End Senior Network held a walkabout to highlight that, but nothing has been done. Maybe now there are more councillors living in the West End, and maybe, read the West End Journal monthly edition tomorrow, and maybe you could help the West End. But, Mr. Mayor, you are an accountant, and I know you will follow the late Mayor Art Phillips, who created many improvements to the city finances, because you're the second one only after Art Phillips who understands finances, and he really put the city in a good financial position, and we need to spend our money wisely, and I'm sure you can do that. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. I don't see any questions on the docket hit, but I do want to make one comment. It's more than one person. I want to be very clear. While I'm mayor of the city, these are my team members, and they're fabulous. Not only the individuals that sit as my peers on council, but the people that work at the city. And I'm really incredibly proud to consider them my partners, and they do a great job. And so, we have some challenges ahead of us. And you know what? We have a great team that's going to be driving forward. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
The next person we have on the docket is Tim Kiko. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Principal of the BC Build Envelope.
Mr. Mayor, I've been called worse. Keycott.
Keycott. I apologize. I was thinking Pretty Faridko.
Okay. No, listen, all good, all good. I want to start by saying thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. And I'm not here to ask for money. I'm hoping that I can promote some ideas to save money. And that's really why I'm here today. Mike, good to see you again. It's been a while. What I wanted to start off by saying is, wow, I mean, you guys are dealing with a lot of money. $3.5 billion, that's a lot of money. And you've got a lot of pressures as to where it should go and what you should do with it and how it should be spent. There's no shortage of that. But I'm pursuing things from a climate strategy. Back in 2019, the City of Vancouver declared a climate emergency. Now, when I hear the word emergency, what does that mean? What does it indicate? It indicates to me that something has to be done immediately, now, okay? Not something that will drag on for a period of time or years. When you see a vehicle, a police, fire engine, flashing lights, they're in an emergency. So we are in an emergency right now, and it's climate related. We had the heat dome last year. We had the rivers of water. We've had droughts. We've even had a tornado out at UBC. Last year, 7 of the 10 most serious things that happened in Canada happened in BC. So there has to be a sense of urgency, and where I'm coming from is with buildings. Now, you always hear about cars. We've got to rein in the cars, okay? Well, cars account to about 22% of climate change. The real challenge are buildings. They account 39% to climate change. They are the number one. And I started in 2017 approaching the city and talking to them and saying, listen, can you change the way in which you are constructing your buildings? Because what you're doing, and even currently, you are wrapping either old or new buildings in 100% fossil fuel products. Why? I can't get an answer from anybody. Why are you doing that? We've heard about the City of Toronto. Okay, they have a program in place for cool roofing, okay? And it's the only city in Canada that does that and gives rebates to those that go with cool roofing. Now, cool roofing is something that will certainly enhance the ability of being able to reduce climate change. We talk about what happened during the heat dome. Comparison. Washington State and the province of BC. Washington State has 7.8 million people. The province of BC has 5.3. Washington State last year during the heat dome had 157 deaths. We had 619. 44% of the cities of Seattle is the least air-conditioned city in the US. Okay, only 44%. In Vancouver, it's around 40% have air conditioning. Washington has 2.5 million more people than BC, yet they had 462 less deaths than BC. BC has 67.95% of the population of Washington, yet BC had 253% more deaths than Washington. Why? Why did this happen? When extreme heat comes in, a dark or a black roof will reach temperatures of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or over 55 degrees centigrade. The roof will actually be hotter than the pavement. Now, last year, Vancouver had the lion's share of those deaths. People that were baked alive in their homes. When you look at the city of Vancouver, I asked you to do a Google map. Do it between Seattle and Vancouver, and you will see a huge difference. The white roofs in Seattle outnumber the ones in Vancouver at least 500 to 1. So what I'm saying is, it's a better source not only from saving money, because your energy can be paid for, but also saving potential lives. So it's important that we look at this. The city is spending, on average, millions of dollars every year on different types of warranties that are unnecessary. I've worked for 4 different manufacturers.
Tim, I apologize, you are at time, but we do have questions for you from
Okay, will do. Thank you, sir.
Councillor Klassen.
Oh, great, thanks. I thought I was second. Hi, Tim, nice to see you. I realized that we're talking about the city budget here, and so I'm not necessarily looking for a sales pitch too much, but I am quite alive to the importance of trying to reduce our heat island effect here in our city and the benefits that would come from that. What are the kinds of simple things that your organization can do to try and help advocate, or what we can do to help advocate for more of these different surfaces?
Listen, the council has been very receptive. 4 of you, I'm not sure exactly which 4, are meeting with GRIT, G-R-I-T-T, next month, okay, which is green roofing, okay? That's also part and parcel, and solar. I actually present all 3 as a package that will give a building no energy costs. Period. So we're not just talking about capital, we're talking about operating.
Are some of these materials that, I guess the things that we're using for building envelope, I've heard some criticism that they're not well suited to our climate. Like, for example, some of them are designed for drier or colder climates than we have.
Yeah, Mike, that's the old thinking. With the advent of climate change, everything has changed. Quite literally. Because yes, people say, well, we don't need a white roof because we're in a climate that doesn't get too hot or too cold. It could be gray, it could be another color. Now, we do have other colors as well, but you're gonna get the optimum from a white roof. Okay, that's what's gonna give you the power to be able to do what you wanna do. Unfortunately, 5 minutes, thank you, but you can't cover it all in 5 minutes. I put together a presentation I'd like to give to the mayor and to the councilors next month or whenever. That's going to be AIBC approved on talking about those 3 specific areas: single ply roofing, thermoplastic, green roofing, green, blue, and purple, as well as solar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to council. Our next presenter is Ian Marcuse, and he's on the phone. He's the coordinator of the Vancouver Neighborhood Food Networks. Ian, are you on the line?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Mayor and Council. And a big thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and also a big congratulations to all of you on your election wins. And I know that you have a lot of hard work ahead of you. So my name is Ian Marcuse, and I'm the coordinator of the Vancouver Neighborhood Food Networks, who are currently 15 neighborhood-based networks hosted by our community centers or neighborhood houses. And this is a uniquely North American model that is place-based, with each network its own collaborative of dozens more agencies and project partners doing food work in the city. We use a community development approach to develop innovative local food practices that promote social support, cohesion, inclusion, participation, levers relationships and partnerships action which foster and strengthen a just and equitable community food system. We are engaged in school and community gardens, seed saving, community markets, food information sharing, food skills, food celebrations, emergency food provision, research, to name a few programs that support the city aspirations of a healthy city, equity, livability, resilience, and climate emergency response. And at the citywide level, we build our collective voice towards increased advocacy, political action, and policy development towards food systems change. So regarding the budget, now I understand the need for trade-offs, and I do not want to take away from the many other well-deserving funding needs. Of course, we are grateful for the current food system funding available, but I'm here to make the case that municipal food funding of food systems is woefully inadequate. And for this reason, it's a bit difficult to support this budget, as in my reading of it, there appears to be no enhanced service levels in the operating budget, certainly as far as food systems go. So current funding for all food programs, not including the 300,000 or so for school food programs, mostly comes from the $200,000 Sustainable Food Systems Grant, which currently funds only 13 community food networks. This grant has pretty much remained the same since its start 10 years ago. The food systems funding amounts to really a minuscule 0.01% of the operating budget. And it should be noted again that there's also an ongoing food policy staff position vacancy, again reducing our city capacity to advance food systems work. But even more alarming is in the city's $3.5 billion capital budget, there's virtually no money directly allocated to food systems infrastructure. Though in a last-minute motion brought to council by former Councillor Weeb and current Councillor Boyle from the Vancouver Food Policy Council did reinsert a $12 million gap in food systems funding, did see a $600,000 conditional on 25% matching funds from the community put back into the capital budget for the Downtown Eastside Indigenous Food Sovereignty Hub and the South Vancouver Food Hub in Southeast Vancouver, where there is a serious lack of food assets, services, and supports. So you all know that a healthy food system is a key determinant of health, supporting physical, mental, spiritual health, essential to our community well-being. Food feeds cultural identity and even survival in some cases. Healthy local food systems can help mitigate climate impacts and so much more. But we assert that our local food system is highly vulnerable and not meeting the needs for a vast number of our community members. We see the weaponization of food, where less deserving community members are provided charity food that is making people sicker in many cases. Food costs are deepening inequities. Climate impact, heat, drought, and floods are threatening our local food supply. And then the pandemic also saw some food shortages. We assert that our food system is not keeping up with these challenges. But imagine urban food forests that not only capture carbon but feed people, or scaling up our yard share program to thousands of residents turning their lawns into food gardens, or building out direct farmer-to-consumer local accessible markets that build equity through food affordability, reduce food waste, and support local green economy, or more community kitchens that build social cohesion and community nutrition skills. So even with a modest doubling of the food grant to, say, $400,000, while still low, could see many amazing ideas and existing programs scaled up. Evidence does confirm the power of good food in building community health and well-being, and we would like to see a greater prioritization of local food systems where everyone is guaranteed the dignity and supports to access nutritious food of their own choosing. Again, there are many more stories that I could share with you about the power of good food, but I know I'm out of time. I thank you, and we, on behalf of the Vancouver Neighborhood Food Network, certainly look forward to working with you all moving ahead to help build a healthy city for all. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you, Ian. You literally nailed it on 5 minutes, so I want to applaud you for that. And you have questions from Councillor Carr.
Great. Thanks so much, Ian, for the work that you're doing around food in the city and food security. Really appreciate that. So my question to you is that in terms of permanence of food gardens, is there a recommendation? I mean, right now, I've been fighting for quite a few years to get our community food gardens to be permanent, but I'm not sure how many there are that are permanent. I don't know really of any, but maybe you can inform me. And how important might it be to you to make sure that those food gardens, those community gardens, are permanent?
Yeah, I don't have that information specifically. I know that the Vancouver Urban Agriculture Society would have all that information. So I know that I believe that growing more food locally is a priority that we should be looking at, particularly around climate change. And I know that we want to come together and start convening more of the grassroots. It really hasn't happened over the years to start to advance some policy priorities. And I would say that's a key one for sure. I know that the urban agriculture businesses, social enterprises such as Soul Food, that's probably their number one concern is tenure and tenure to attain sustainability. So I suspect that is the number one issue for many urban agriculture groups. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for just that affirmation. In terms of the sort of upcoming opportunities around expanding food gardens and food security, has your connections and your groups talked at all about the Vancouver plan, in which there is a indication of wanting to reassign about 13% of neighborhood streets to other community uses, including food gardens? Has that been anything that you've been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we're thrilled that there is a page in the Vancouver Plan around food systems, so that's definitely a good start. Yeah, the recommendations are fairly high level, but what we need to do, and we've talked to city staff, food policy staff, and really it's kind of a two-way thing. They really do need to hear from us at the neighborhood level. What are the priorities in our neighborhoods? And so, I mean, real honestly, Adrian, moving forward, we do need a better convening around these issues and a better two-way process working with staff to set these priorities. But particularly where there is policy existing, that gives staff a bit of a leg up in advancing these. But they've also told us it's been really hard for them to track these food recommendations. It's just the staffing isn't there, so they don't always know. You know, I mean, things get put into local area plans, but there's no follow through necessarily.
Right.
You know,
Right.
or it may happen in zoning and development. You know,
Yeah.
projects may. You know what I mean? So.
I do. And I'd love to continue questions and answers right now, but I am out of time. Thank you again for
Thank
answering
you.
those questions and just for your great service here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ian, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to council. And I'd like to thank all the speakers, everyone from the city of Vancouver who, showed up here today to help us answer these questions, and everyone in this chamber. And that concludes the special council meeting. A reminder that council will debate and decide the 2023 capital budget and potentially operating budget at the council meeting next week, Tuesday, December the 6th. May we have a motion to adjourn? Is it Councillor Kirby-Young, seconder? Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.